Well, I was going to try to do this video more professionally, but I'm just using the quick capture thing again. Um, this is a subject I've been thinking about for a long time, like decades. I'm basically of the opinion that there's a real problem that no one's paying any attention to, and the problem is technology and human individuality are not compatible. I mean, technological progress anyway. That there's a point where individuals can't be allowed to have free use of certain technology because that technology can be applied in ways that could hurt or harm thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, maybe everybody on the planet. Who knows? Examples would be, the hurricane thing kind of demonstrated that, all you have to do is knock out a dike somewhere, and Katrina, in Louisiana. I mean, it's a dike. It wasn't about a hurricane. It was about a dike failing, and so, humans with malicious intent could certainly engineer such a failure, and it wouldn't create you don't need a huge amount of technology to do it. And so it's for people to have, a personal musket. But, if you have, a Blu-ray laser or something, and, you're a little bit of technical know-how, you could turn this thing into a very destructive weapon against other people. So anyway, there is a point, like I said, where we have this technology, we have this stuff in our environment, and there's a point where it creates such a vulnerability because all you need is one crazy person. And so there's been a lot of talk, because of current events with the amazing atheist, going on a crusade against, these Satanists and Hitler worshippers and the whole Columbine thing and the rest of it. And so there are these individuals who really have no apprehension about if they're going to die, they're miserable and unhappy, and they just figure they're going to take out as many people as they can. And so to better illustrate this, I mean, the thing that really got me thinking about this years ago was the fact that all these science fiction movies always create this future that I couldn't imagine being practical. I mean, you take Star Wars, for example. I mean, one of these light cruisers, I mean, all you need is one person with one of these spaceships. They have, basically more than a nuclear power plant on board. I mean, who knows what kind of technology it would take to travel at light speed. I mean, you don't need a Death Star to blow up a planet. All you'd have to do is crash one of these spaceships into a planet to wipe it out. So I mean, how could you couldn't possibly have a future, a practical future, where such technology was readily accessible to any individual, because the laws of averages are you're going to finally run across an individual who's got a perception that the human race isn't worth it. And so when you take the environment where we have all these, we have this terrorism, we have all this stuff where people have absolutely nothing to lose. They really don't have a life, and so they're not really invested in the future. And a little bit of anger, and you have cause for them to try to do as much damage as they possibly can to civilization. And this is, it's like nobody's talking about it. No one's trying to figure out, well, how do we get to this future? How do we get to the future if we can't allow individuals to be flawed, and we can't allow individuals to have access to any technology that could be applied for a negative purpose. And especially when you think about the whole nuclear thing, I mean, there's not going to be fewer people on Earth understanding the technology in the future. There's going to be more people, and sooner or later somebody's going to be able to make some kind of bomb, and it doesn't even have to be a great bomb, but some kind. And you could imagine if they smuggled it onto a cargo ship in New York Harbor or whatever, they could make a cell phone call, and 8 million people could be dead. And so it's a real threat. And and like I said, you don't see anything in science fiction that demonstrates any kind of positive future that has any practical meaning. There's movies that, like The Postman, that show a bleak, burnt out civilization, and that seems, I can't find a plot flaw in that, in the sense that I could see where you can't wipe out every human society, but you could create enough chaos and enough brokenness in the function of society that there's 9 out of 10 people are dead, and all the infrastructure is eliminated, and we're going back to some kind of 17th or 16th century life, with maybe a few bits of technology still around that people are using. It's kind of like the those Mel Gibson movies from the 70s or whatever. So that's another example of but it's a bleak future. It's not a nice place. I mean, it's going to be this Darwinian survival of the fittest kind of world where the malicious and evil and corrupt and conscienceless, the less baggage you have of civilization, the more likely it is you will survive, because it's going to be a world where it'll be kill or be killed, and there won't be any fairness rules or any anything to discipline against that harsh reality. And so I'm basically wondering if, what input you have. I know I don't have that many subscribers, not that many people watch, but how do you reconcile this problem, and how do you think we are going to get from here to 100 years from now, or 200 years from now, or 500 years from now? How is intelligence and civilization going to survive this trap, short of creating some sort of 1984 people control the masses? How are we going to? How is it possible for us to survive? Where you still have individuals with freedom, and you somehow need to eliminate the threat of aberrant psychology or dangerous psychology that would maybe provoke somebody to do something destructive on a massive scale, a scale that, like I said, you wouldn't have to create too much chaos to create destruction of a civilization. A few million people injured or something, the infrastructure couldn't handle it. You could kind of see that happen in Louisiana, and that's a much smaller scale. Where just everything falls apart, and people will become animals again. And then once that starts, I don't think there's any government that could recover itself. So anyway, that's the challenge, is to explain why you think, if you do, civilization will survive or prevail. And because I'm far from convinced. That'll be it.